Okay, I want us to focus briefly on Parliament because that's your house. That's where you play, so to speak. And you are a multiple-term member of Parliament. When you look at the 8th Parliament and how it's performed, looking at the fact that we are going into another electoral cycle, going to embrace the 9th Parliament, and some of what has happened in both the NDC and the MPP, where stalwarts are either not going anymore or they did not win their primaries and all of that. Some have said this means that the quality of the 9th Parliament is going to be low. And you have the majority leader, he's not coming back. And so many other dynamics. What would you say to that question about the quality of parliamentarians and whether that will be affected on the back of, especially on the majority side, some of the losses they've incurred?
I think we need to have a nuanced discussion about this phenomenon, and you have to be careful not to create the impression as though every new entrant coming into the house doesn't have something good to offer just because they are new. I mean, they are first-time MPs who have made such an impact. If I look at young MPs like the Honorable Isaac Adongo, the Honorable Francis Xavier Susu, who are, younger in the house, younger to me, and others. I don't think that you will say that they have not made a meaningful addition. I would argue that they have been phenomenal. So it is not always the case that longevity necessarily amounts to a positive addition, even though I am going to concede that because of how the house is, quite regimented, quite technical, you must master the standing orders, master our procedures and practices and conventions. You need some time to catch up and become well versed in those arenas. But I think that we need to find a fine balance. You also want to show that the institution is growing. You are having, fresh impetus every now and then. So I think that we should always go.
So there's a fine balance.
We should always go
new
for
faces.
We should always go for the fine balance. Yes, and I think that it blends nicely. So I'm not one who will just dismiss every young person coming, because if that was the case, some of us would not have been given the opportunity. And I don't think that as relatively young MPs, we have done badly, even though I'll leave that verdict for the people to make. So I get a sense that there's a lot of apprehension out there, but I am not too disturbed. I think that the institution will thrive. All of these people who are senior today and are leaving were young, and they still made their impact when they came in freshly. What I will add, though, is that we should encourage a culture of parliamentary career politicians, as we have in other jurisdictions. Right.
There are people who have been in Congress for...
Yes.
They've been there their entire lives.
Yes, their entire lives. And we should encourage that. Here, in no time you start hearing, it's been there for too long.
They've also done well. There are parliamentarians who have been there for 20 plus years.
Yes.
Alban Bagbin.
Yeah, except that there are not many.
Oseiche Mensah Bonsu. They've been there for forever.
They are, and they are rare breeds. They are rare breeds. We have... The attrition rate in the Ghanaian parliament is amongst the highest.
But isn't it also about two things? One, the quality of people, and then two, the fact that it is very political here. Those establishments you're comparing us to, Congress and the rest, they do a fine job. They have staff. They go by the book. Yes, the politics is there, Republican and Democrat, but they have a system. Here, it is extremely partisan. It is extremely partisanly political. So obviously, we can't say same and expect people to be there for 4 decades or 5 decades.
So you do have a point about the extreme partisanship, and I think that we need to, as an institution, even get the message that voters are delivering to us now. See, for the first time, we have a hung parliament. And you're seeing a lot of what we call in Ghanaian parlance skirt and blouse voting. So you see a certain desire by the electorate that go to parliament and reduce the partisanship, seek our interests. When the executive gets out of range, they become unhinged. You should rein them in. And I think that so far as that expectation is concerned, we haven't done much. We must do better. We must all concede as a house that if you look at the three arms of government, there's a very, overwhelming view out there that the legislative arm has been the weakest. And some say it's a function of the Constitution. I say that it is both the function of the Constitution and the people who we send there, because really nobody puts a gun to your head to engage in the extreme partisanship. You should be able to put the country first and pursue a nationalistic, patriotic agenda and leave that to your conscience. Even if you may suffer within your party, I don't think that that should deter you from doing what you should do. So it's not just merely the issue of constitutional provisions, but it is also, the caliber of persons and their personal creed that they go into parliament with. So I think that, back to the point I was making, we need to really encourage more parliamentary career politicians who go to parliament just because they want to be legislators, they want to be lawmakers, and not because they want to catch the eye of the president.
How do we do that?
Perhaps.
Had is ideological, whatever trainings. How do we get there? Do we have to have a system? There are career diplomats.
Yes.
Okay, my own uncle was a career ambassador here and there. There are those who chart that course and that path, and there are things to do. How do we do same for legislators?
I agree with the...
And briefly on that point.
Very briefly, I agree with the Constitutional Review Commission's work that we should amend that constitutional provision that mandates presidents to appoint majority of their ministers from Parliament. I think that has been really the bane, and that is what has reduced the potency of Parliament. So people go to Parliament hoping that they will catch the eye of the president. And when announcements are made, for example, soon there will be these reshuffles and all of that, those MPs who are left out, who don't make the list, it's as if you are an outcast. It's as if you are not a good MP. Meanwhile, you didn't go to Parliament. The people didn't vote for you in their constituency to become a minister. They were voting for their MP, to represent them in Parliament, not in cabinet or the executive. So I think that constitutional amendment will help. And let's have a more assertive, a more independent Parliament, and let's encourage, more parliamentary career. And it starts from us. I mean, we should not always be beholden to the executive, looking for favors from the executive. We should be content with our conditions of service in the House, and we should work in a way that we will earn, that respect that we deserve. And I really think that will be the solution.
All right, so two quick questions on Parliament, and then we can move on to other things. We're still going to be talking about Baumia's speech and what was in there, GRA, the SML issues, the anti-gay bill, among others. But quickly, so on going back to Parliament and everything in between, there have been some projections from some people that you're going to have a wide majority in Parliament come the 9th Parliament. Do you subscribe to that? And what are your projections and why?
I've been looking at the polls, and it's a scientific projection. It's based
scientific by whom? By the NDC?
It's based on evidence. No, be looking at the polls. If you follow what the Global Info Analytics has been doing, Musa Dankwa's group, and you also consider our own internal polling, you will realize that there's really a groundswell of support for the NDC, not only for our parliamentary candidates, but also for our flag bearer. There is no doubt that we are winning, and we're going to win massively, and largely is due to the abysmal performance.
When you say you're going to win massively, presidential or parliamentary?
Both presidential and parliamentary. We're going to have a very, very convincing and working majority, as is described in the terminologies. But having said that, we are not complacent. We are not saying that, look, it's in the bag, and so we are going to rest on our oars. We're working very hard. We consider there have been times that we could have been more vigilant. There have been times that we allow all kinds of things to happen, behind the scenes that denies the people the right to have their votes properly counted. So we are working on all of those areas. I'm confident in the Dr. Omane Boama-led election directorate. They've brought in a lot of reforms, very exciting new ways of tightening.
Are you going to be able to monitor the elections this time around and get your facts?
Yes,
that's on the minute, rather than what we saw in the last election.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about. So we are humble enough, honest enough to concede that there have been some of those election management areas where we have fallen short, not met the expectation of our voters. Look, when people go through all of that hassle, the queues, under the vagaries of the weather, they expect their votes to count. They expect you to respect their mandate, that they have given to you. So we're going to solve all those problems, and I'm really impressed with what the Omane Boama.
You're going to solve, which means you've not solved yet.
So when I put it that way, I want the election outcome, how we conduct ourselves on December 7th, to speak for itself.
Okay, all right.
That by December 7th, Ghanaians will be impressed with what we do. So we're very confident. Look, if you see the quality of work that MPs have done in opposition, I'm told in the polls that anytime research is conducted, NDC MPs feature prominently in terms of MPs who are really serving their people, who are out there, who are not disappointing their electorate. And I think that in all humility, we have to continue that way. My colleagues and I...
Do you have a projection in terms of the numbers you're hoping to get?
Oh, yes. I mean, we don't expect anything less than 180 seats from the way things are looking. And it could be...
So 275, you're expecting about 180.
Yeah.
You are hoping to leave the MPP with about 95 seats.
Yes, it's very possible. Very possible. I mean,
so your projection, is that you could get about what?
About 180 seats. Yeah.
180 seats.
Yes.
Which would give you a dominant majority in Parliament.
Yeah.
That's your projection for 2025.
That's what the polls are telling us. If they are to be believed, and we don't have cause to doubt.
All right. Since we're talking politics, I'll get to the EC shortly, but I just have a question. The former President Mahama, he's spoken about ex gratia packages and all of that, which you benefited from, right? He has benefited from. You have benefited from. All of you who have served up to this point since Kufuor have benefited from.
Yes,
but let me just ask you this. Are you willing to forfeit it? Because that's where he's stoked conversation on that. Are you willing to forfeit that? Do you think it's the right direction to go?
Absolutely. And if you've been following my writings, I probably started talking about this way back, even before it became a topical issue in recent times. And I noticed that Dr. Baumia has also now caught up with this position, albeit belatedly. Look, I take the view that there are ways that this whole exiting packages can be managed better. If you take MPs, for example, as I speak to you as MP in this 8th Parliament, I don't know my conditions of service. We wait. You set up the emoluments committee later. The president sets it up very late.
But they say that is done intentionally so that you can get accumulated money.
Accumulated, yeah.
But you fed into that system. The NDC has done the same thing.
Why do we keep doing that? Because, look, a lot of what people complain about ex gratia, a lot of it is just accumulated. Because as organized labor is negotiating, and every year you are getting either a 10% increase or a 30% increase, getting COLA and all of those things. We are left out. We wait to the last minute at the end of your tenure, then it is all put together, lump sum. Then it becomes a huge figure, and then there is such an uproar. Why don't we have a system? And I subscribe to what the UK did recently, where you have an independent emoluments commission. Because you see, even how it is done in Ghana, ab initio, creates the impression that, look, this is going to be a scratch my back, I scratch your back. The president is appointing and then we have to approve that of the executive. They approve that of the
so
legislature.
If you do me, I do you.
Yeah. So depending on how we are watching. So if you make me fine, I go do you fine. It's not helpful. So let us have an independent emoluments commission, as the UK has done recently, and they should be in charge of everybody, not only politicians. Because I keep saying that, look, the political class should consciously take away the things that bring us into opprobrium, the matters that consistently, puts us on a collusion course with the electorate, with the Ghanaian people, is totally needless. It can be avoided.
Let me just clarify. Did you say, just because of what's on the screen, did you say 180 or 190 seats?
180.
180.
180.
So we'll clarify that.
Yes,
we hope to secure
180. Yes.
seats in Parliament. That's what I just had to take a quick look at that. 180 seats, you said.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.